Okay, this is going to be the first PowerPoint over the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are going to be the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. I've drawn a stick figure guy here holding an umbrella. It's a magical, invisible umbrella. This goes all the way back to the first unit. The Bill of Rights, again, were supposed to be a protection from up here, not the rain, but this brand new federal government. There were certain things that the Anti-Federalists wanted protected that were not in the initial Constitution. So they passed the Bill of Rights guaranteeing protections from this federal government. Instead of protecting you from the rain, it was going to be protecting you from this brand new federal government that was sitting at 50% of power. So a lot of people want to use the Bill of Rights to protect them from punishment. Clearly, Bart wants to be protected from burping because he said it was freedom of speech. Clearly, his teacher did not agree. The Supreme Court determines the meaning of the Bill of Rights. Of course, this Bill of Rights guarantees you rights, but they are not completely and 100% protected. There are sometimes your rights can be reduced. And the key concept for this first bullet point is the Supreme Court cannot unilaterally go and get court cases and bring them to themselves. For instance, the Affordable Health Care Act, let's take that. It was passed by the House, passed by the Senate, and then signed by the President. It is then law. If you like it or not like it, it is law. If you do want to find if it is unconstitutional or not, you're going to have to test it. So somebody would have to sue and bring it to court, and bring it to district court, and then the court would make a decision. If you didn't like that decision, you could appeal it. If your side won, then it's groovy. It's great. You win. But the other side can appeal. So the Court of Appeal decides, and then you could appeal that decision and then go to the Supreme Court. Incorporation is basically this very simple concept that, if you remember my title slide, that umbrella protected you from the federal government. No one was scared of the state governments because they were the state governments. They elected everybody in the state governments. But the federal government was kind of far away. So the Bill of Rights protected you from only the federal government at first. Incorporation is this concept of how the Bill of Rights became to be applied to the states. Now, previously I told you that the Supreme Court cannot go and get cases. They have to come to them. So if you're going to incorporate them, you have to wait to incorporate a right in a case. So Mapp v. Ohio incorporated this concept of illegal search and seizure by introducing this rule called the exclusionary rule. So in that court case, all they did was incorporate to all states now the right of illegal search and seizure to the states. So that's how one little itty bitty right of the Fourth Amendment, not the entire Fourth, just one little clause of the Fourth Amendment, was incorporated. So we call that selective incorporation. The Supreme Court does not have the ability to take a big blanket across the Bill of Rights and say they are all incorporated. They have to wait for a case to come to them that reflects that right. And then finally, so important here, is this ability that the Supreme Court balances the rights of the individual with the needs of society. So I have the right to wave my hands and flail them with my fists and wave my fists all over the place, but somebody else has the right not to be hit in the nose with my flailing fists. It's the right of me to do this, but the rights of society not to be affected by that. So it's always a balancing act. Again, very quickly, First Amendment came up with a little mnemonic called RAPS: religion, assembly, press, petition, speech. RAPS, please make sure you remember that. Freedom of religion has two huge concepts. Let's take a look at the whole thing. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So we have two big concepts. One is called the Free Exercise Clause, and the other the Establishment Clause. And sometimes they run into each other. You know, when we look at the Bill of Rights and we say it protects you from government, oftentimes schools are in the center of this, because if you look at the federal government has a smaller entity, and that's state government. State government has a smaller entity, and that's county governments. County governments oftentimes have a smaller entity, townships. Townships have smaller government entities called cities. And in the end, the smallest entity is a school, because school officials have to are run by the school board. And that's how schools are run, and those are elected people. So the smallest form of government here in the state of Illinois are the schools, school boards. So schools are thrown into this entity. So if a student raises their hand and says, Mr. Gagan, can we say a prayer before the test? If I say yes, now it looks like this school is actually establishing a religion, allowing religion to be brought into the school. If I say no, then I am violating a student's free exercise, her or his ability to pray in school. So let's take a stab at this establishment clause. In schools, I can teach about government. I can allow voluntary prayer in many examples. And I can transport students to religious schools and public school buses. I keep on saying I don't know why I keep on doing that, but schools can transport students. When I was a kid, I went to St. Mary's grade school, a Catholic school. I would stay at the bus stop with my buddies who went to the public schools, and here we go. The public schools buses are taking us to the Catholic school, dropping us off, and then the bus would continue on to drop off the kids at the public schools. Is that a violation? The state getting involved with religion? Supreme Court said no. They're not teaching religion, they're just giving them a ride, so they said it was okay. There are some things that the government cannot do, and that is set a state religion. Government cannot order a prayer or read a Bible. In the 1960s, the state of New York passed a law saying that all public schools had to say a prayer in their announcements. Somebody sued, again, the rights of individual versus the rights of society. Somebody sued who is not very religious and said that's a violation of the Establishment Clause, and the Supreme Court agreed. The state legislature passed a law, and they should not be doing that. Again, if you look at Unit 2, we looked at political parties and interest groups. There are people who are really concerned with, they don't see a big deal about prayer in school, so they are advocating these things. Right after that case in New York, they pressed the state of Pennsylvania to pass a law saying that a Bible passage be read on the announcements every day. That passed. Again, somebody sued, and the Supreme Court said that is clearly a violation of the Establishment Clause, so that was not allowed. Clearly, you're not allowed to teach about religious doctrine in this school. You cannot pay parochial teachers with government funds, and you're not allowed to teach creationism or intelligent design, at least stated by law. You're not allowed to. Again, creationism is the Bible's version of what happened, as opposed to evolution, which is Darwinism. Sorry. Again, many southern states passed a law saying if you teach evolution, you have to teach creationism. Some people sued, went up to the Supreme Court, and they said that is a religious doctrine, so we're going to waive that off. That would be unconstitutional. Again, a lot of people are interested in being able to teach creationism, again, an interest group. They were unsuccessful, so many years later they introduced this concept called intelligent design, which the Supreme Court said is basically creationism, and they nullified that as well. The Onion is a video, maybe we'll be able to see it in class. There are so many court cases being thrown up to the Supreme Court that they decided to issue what is called a Lemon test. In the case of Lemon versus Kurtzman, they basically said this is their view of the Establishment Clause. A case can be allowed if it has a secular purpose, meaning that it is not trying to advocate religion. So it's separate. Must neither advance religion, but then again, it can't inhibit religion either. So again, both sides. Must not result in an excessive government entanglement with religion. Again, I love that because the Supreme Court says excessive government entanglement. How do you judge that? But I guess that's not, they are to judge whether it's an excessive government entanglement. Apparently there can be a slight government entanglement or some government entanglement, but not excessive government entanglement. That's the Lemon test, please remember that. And then finally, the free exercise of religion. Free exercise, a person can choose whatever religion he wants, which is good. You can lead a prayer in most examples. You can ask questions about religion, whether to ask what is Judaism and what are the pros and cons, what about Catholicism. If you're searching for the truth about life, you can ask that. Now, no, you might go, duh, but in other countries you're not allowed to. If you live in countries like Afghanistan under the Taliban, you are not allowed to ask questions like that. This is doctrine, that's what it is. Don't ask. So we're lucky enough to have a free exercise. And you can worship whatever you want. Now, having said that, you cannot set up your own religion and say, hey man, we have a bunch of 19-year-olds, we're going to set up our own religion and we're going to be allowed to drink beer. That's what we're allowed to do in our religion. And then laugh it off and say we're allowed to do this and claim the free exercise of religion if the police catch you. Because you cannot break the law and claim it as religious belief. You cannot raise children without an education. That goes back to Wisconsin versus Yoder and the Amish having people having their kids not go to school in high school, only 8th grade, and the Supreme Court said, you know what, they have had an education, that's good enough. They don't have to go to high school because of their religious beliefs. But they do have to have some semblance of an education. And somebody cannot deprive children of basic needs and say it's free exercise. For instance, if a child is sick, and parents who are incredibly religious and claiming that, or just believing, having the faith that God will take care of this person and not taking him to the hospital, the state can step in and make sure that that person is okay. Now, what we're going to be looking at is the rest of the First Amendment, but that will be taking place at another day. What I really want to do fairly quickly is show you this, and hopefully this will make a little bit sense now that you've looked at some of the concepts in our first two PowerPoints and then watching this third. This is a court case from just 2009. It's called Christian, matter of fact, you're going to see this website quite a bit in this unit, oyez.org, Christian Legal Society Chapter versus Martinez. If you look at the facts of the case, Christian Legal Society Chapter of the University of California, Hastings College of Law School filed suit against the University in California in Federal District for violating its First Amendment rights. So do me a favor, read this all the way here, and you can pause it right now and read it, because I can see I'm running out of time. Okay, so now you have the facts of the case. Now, in the end, the school won. So the person appealed. On appeal, the U.S. Court of Appeals affirmed, meaning they agreed with the lower court. Okay, so now there was a question. Remember that in my PowerPoint and the second PowerPoint, did the Ninth Circuit error when its holding runs directly contrary to the Seventh Circuit's 2006 decision in Christian Legal Society versus Walker? What do we have here? This is, of course, precedent. So Martinez believes that this precedent should overrule the decision by the Ninth Circuit Court. And here is our decision. 5-4, 5 for Martinez, 4 votes against, and in the end, they basically agreed with the Supreme Court affirmed the Ninth Circuit, saying that the college's all-comer policy is reasonable, viewpoint neutral condition on access to the student organization forum, and therefore did not transgress the First Amendment limitations. So you see a couple of things in there. Martinez is the president of the school, so I kind of screwed up when I said that earlier, so I apologize. So we see a whole bunch of concepts here. This is how a court case goes all the way through the process.